Okay, so I go ahead and create a new application in Flash. I'm going to be using Flash CS5 for this. Now remember, if you download a free version of Flash right now or you buy a new version, at this time you're going to be getting Flash CS5 and pretty soon Flash CS6. So you'll need to remember to save down at least through 2011 here to save down to Flash CS5. Okay, so I go ahead and create this, and I get an actions window and it pops up. Yours may be slightly different, but you'll probably get something very similar to this layout right here. Okay, what I want to do is create a new ActionScript 3 file. And at this time, you don't want to be creating the Air or the iPhone OS or any of this type of stuff. We just go ahead and create ActionScript 3. And that'll work for us. Now the default size, I believe, is still going to be 550 by 400. I can check that, and by the default size, I mean the default size of the stage here. So I can right click and go to Document Properties, and it is indeed 550 by 400, and that's 550 pixels by 400 pixels. The frame rate for how many images will be seen per second is 24 images per second by default, and a white background by default. Okay. This up here is our timeline, and just like in an animated movie, you can have different frames, and when you create different images along the timeline, it will change just as in a movie. Okay, we have our stage where things appear. We have our properties window, which is really the same for most programs, including Photoshop, Flash, Word, and this just controls how your objects look and the size of those objects and where they are on the stage. Okay, well, let's get started. So I'm going to begin by creating a new layer. So I'll have two layers up here. I just go up and click there, and now I have two layers. I'm going to rename it, so I just double click here, and now I can just type actions. And then on the second layer, I'm going to create a name called rocket ship. There we go. All right. Now, the actions layer, it's worth noting that eventually we're going to have our actions be in an external file, actually pretty soon here. But for now, it's easiest just to show you how to create the code within the timeline. When you're first starting off, that's just an easier thing to do because we're learning so much at this time. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create my spaceship. It's going to be a very simple spaceship. I'm going to go over to my tools. If you don't have your tools showing, remember that there's a Windows. It doesn't show here, but there's a Windows option up here. You click on Windows, and then you get all these different window options that you can see. If you've used any Adobe program before, then you'll know about this. Okay. And the tools bar will appear. And I'll go ahead and choose one of the tools, one of the Polystar tools, should be good. I can choose the outline for that tool and the fill color for that tool. I'll keep that at the default. What I will do, though, is to change the stroke size, and I'm going to push that stroke size up to about 2. So it'll be a little bit wider line. Stroke size just means the line width. And now I'll go back up here and make sure I have that Polystar selected again and just go ahead and draw it out. Now I can rotate that. I'm rotating that with my mouse. And draw it out. It's going to fill with gray. And now I'll create a square. So I go on over here. Yours may be in a slightly different spot for the tools bar. Don't sweat it too much if it is. You can drag these and push these all around. And I'll create a rectangle. There we go. And again, this will just be pretty simple, but I'm going to grab the edges here. This is a vector-based program, so it means that you can modify it at runtime really easily as opposed to something like Photoshop. That's one of the reasons Flash is still being used, because it's so easy to create your objects and modify them within here. And that's actually it that I'm going to do for now. You want to make it more complex than this, make it look a little bit better, maybe even put a background in or something. But for right now, I just keep this pretty simple, keep this moving forward. Okay, so here's my shape, and I'm going to go ahead and select it all. And if I have more layers, like let's say you put a background in or something, you actually probably just want to lock that. You probably only want to select the spaceship. Don't select any background elements, because we're going to make the spaceship into an object. It's going to be its own object, And just pretend like you're making, well, pretend, because we are, that you're making a casual-based game. And this object here, you want it to be able to float around by itself and fire and blow up and so forth. So you don't want it to have a background behind it that's always moving with it. Okay, so I select just this shape, right-click, and see if I can get that to show up here for convert to symbol. So you're going to convert this to a symbol, and you pull up this new window, and there's a bunch of options here. Don't sweat it too much. You're just going to do it as a movie clip for right now. And I call this UFO. All right. Call it spaceship or UFO, whatever you want. I just went ahead and called it a quick name. Remember, you have to select movie clip and UFO. The other thing is that I am going to choose export for ActionScript, and you're going to get some stuff down here in these panels that will appear that will probably be maybe a little intimidating if this is your very first time using the program, especially. Don't sweat it. Just go with the flow. So export for ActionScript. It gives you a class name. We'll be talking about that during this course. And also base class. And again, don't worry about it right now. I just noticed that it does give you the same name as what you put up here. And we'll talk about that later. Okay, it gives you this warning. It just says, hey, there's no class around. That's because you haven't created it yet. So this isn't really an error, even though it looks like one. So you just go ahead and say, that's fine. And you may even want to say, don't show this again. All right, so once you've created it, it's going to be a movie clip, and it's going to have a blue line around it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and delete this so you actually see that there's nothing on the stage. All right. But in my library, which I'm going to click on over here in this library panel, you don't see it. Again, you can go to Window, and then it's going to be Library. And in your library, you'll see that there is a UFO. So there's a little spaceship created within that library. Now you can drag it out, and there it is, and it appears on your stage. Now if I test my movie by going up to Control, Test Movie, it's just Control on the menu bar and Test Movie. And that's kind of how you publish it temporarily. And it's going to bring up, it should bring up, test, there we go. Takes a second, there we go. And now it brings up how it's going to look as a Shockwave flash file as it's being tested. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and delete that from my stage. We're going to use ActionScript. We're going to use code to bring it out. And why would you use code to bring it out instead of putting it on the stage? Well, sometimes you may want it to interact with the code. Most of the time you're going to want it to interact with the code. For example, if you want it to move around by itself or to shoot at things or blow up and disappear off the stage. In order to have it interact, the best way to do it is to use ActionScript to bring it on the stage rather than dragging it out from the library. So I go up to my Actions and right-click and choose Actions. You get this new window. This is actually just a text editor. You could actually create your actions in a text editor if you wanted, but we'll go ahead and use the built-in one for Flash. And for anybody who's done a little programming before, you'll probably fit right in here, and after a little bit, it'll become second nature for you, programming within the ActionScript window. If you haven't done any programming, then this will be new, and there's going to be a steeper learning curve. So, first of all, there's line numbers here, and every time I press Enter, I get new line numbers. That's just one way that you can keep track of your code and the text that you're typing. So I'm going to go ahead and make a comment tag. A comment tag is made by these 2 forward slashes that I just did. And what that means is that I'm making a comment that the program cannot actually read. And it's just words that are written for me or for other programmers so that I can describe how this is working. So I'm just going to say that this is a game example for DMA 240 for our class. I'm going to press return. I'm only pressing return a few times to make it easier to read. It doesn't affect the code to have these carriage returns. And I'll add a new comment. Notice that it's gray. We will soon add our code to an external file. But for now, we'll just type the code here and associate it with the timeline. I have to make sure my spelling is correct. Okay, so far so good. Now I'm going to start my actual programming. And I'll get into this much more deeply, of course, as the quarter goes on. But for now, just kind of follow me here. Now, I am going to create a variable, and this variable is going to hold, we're going to load the UFO and all the properties of the UFO into it. So I just call it my UFO. It could be any name you want. You could call it Fred. That would work. Or you could call it spaceship. That would work. I'm going to call mine my UFO. And it's going to be a data type. There's different types of data. And it's going to be a data type movie clip. Because that's what we made here. And if I look over here, I see that it is a movie clip. So it's going to equal new UFO. So what we just did was we created a new instance of the UFO, of the spaceship. So it's very important that it's the same name here. Now, you're looking here, and that's uppercase UFO. So actually, I do have to be careful about that. It's case sensitive. So let me just double check things here. And it is indeed uppercase, so this wouldn't work here if I just typed it as I did. So I better come back here and make that uppercase. Now, it's going to be a new UFO. And so this here, this name, has to match the instance name here in your properties. Okay? This name here doesn't. It could be any name you want. All right. Now I'm going to add it to the stage. It's just a second line of code, and this is it. So addChild is our command, and we're going to add my UFO to the stage. Okay, so we create an instance. It pulls it out of the library and puts it in this variable that I just named. And now we use this name, and that's what we add to the stage. So now if I save this up, and I go to Control Test Movie, and it should appear on the stage. There we go. So it appears on the stage, even though there's nothing here. The code is taken out of the library and placing it there, and then I can manipulate it during the game and have it move around and fire it and so forth. So that's just a very basic introduction, and we have a lot to get into as the quarter progresses. Thank you.